you know, from what I gather from the internal polling, that O'Malley's camp is still fairly confident that, you know, that they have a, you know, a respectable lead, and they expect that that lead will continue to widen between over the summer. I haven't seen those polls, so I don't know. I mean, there may be some kind of wishful thinking on MLA, but from what I see, you know, O'Malley still seems to be holding his own quite well.
What do you think?
Well, the last time we were here, there was the one poll that had them neck and neck, the Rasmussen poll. And I think that's the one that still got them so
Headlines
close.
in the paper did heat, and it was
Rasmussen polls likely voters as opposed to registered voters, as opposed to all voters. So depending on which one of those cohorts you examine, you might get a slightly different perspective. I
think it's still going to come down to the economy as the summer goes on, and people get more or less frustrated with what is happening in their own communities. I think that's going to have a big effect. And I think it's just an anti-incumbent, and they're going to blame O'Malley for whatever it is that is hurting them. And I think he's going to suffer because of that. I don't know that he'll actually lose the election, but I do think it'll be very close.
We got some good economic numbers over the last couple of weeks. So the number of job recoveries in Maryland over the last couple of months continues to rise. And Maryland is doing, you know, in the top tier of all the states in the country in terms of job recovery. So if that continues to go, you might be right. He may actually be one of the unique ones that can get by some of those concerns.
What do you think, Len?
One key to his victory is turnout from Prince George's County. If the voters turn out, he'll win. If the voters don't turn out, he's in trouble.
And we have a lot of local elections in the county, so maybe there will be a healthy turnout.
Well, but they're all in the primary.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Before we go there, last time we discussed, Fred, you were out of town on city business. We discussed the Tea Party group, and I suggested that they were really an amalgamation of cuckoos, and they all got together.
I don't do that.
Whatever. Yeah. But now I see in the paper that the NAACP makes a charge of racism against the Tea Party people, and that kind of was just hanging there. And the Tea Party group has kicked out the head of the Tea Party Express, the guy that runs...
some guy from northern Iowa or something?
Runs a segment of the Tea Party's group, which was responsible for giving $350,000 to Senator Brown, the guy who took over Kennedy's spot. And the Tea Party organization has thrown this guy out for racist remarks. And his marks, as they were, if he said what he said and did what they said he did, writing a hypothetical letter to Abraham Lincoln suggesting that maybe he shouldn't have been into the Emancipation Proclamation.
I haven't followed that very closely.
It was in the press.
I read it. Very, very hateful.
Oh, it's terrible stuff. Yeah.
But I mean, if see, the problem with the Tea Party from an outsider looking in, I mean, they're not like the Republicans or the Democrats or even the Libertarians. I mean, there's no hierarchy. There's no function and order. It's like you said. It's an amalgamation of groups and stuff that are coming together and arguing policy issues or substantive issues. And I'm not really sure that there's, maybe I assume it's intentional that there is no internal controls on those things, but the one I saw was the guy that had put up some sign up there with a picture of the president bracketed by Hitler and Stalin, and saying that, you know, they compared them all as socialists and whatever. Yeah. Now, to their credit, you know, a lot of Tea Party people said that's outrageous. The sign came down very quickly. So I guess, you know, are there racists in the Tea Party? Sure. Are there racists in the NAACP? Sure. Are there racists in the Vatican? Probably. I mean, it's a function.
I wouldn't go that far.
It's a function. It's a functional life. I mean, the reality is, if when you see it, you stand up and say, no, let's get rid of it and move on.
Well, the Tea Party evidently ousted this guy, but he said some really hateful things and come right up front.
Yeah. And he had a huge following of the Tea Party. It's not like he was just some outsider.
Yeah. I mean, he was head of the Tea Party
You don't see that in NAACP.
Whatever.
Well, a large group. And the why I said that he raised $350,000 for the senator who took over Kennedy's position in Massachusetts, it indicated that this guy was not just a lone wolf. He had people following him, and they had funded him some way. And that, I think, is sad. But my re-mentioning it from the last time is that I still maintain that, even you're right about organizational hierarchy doesn't exist, but there really are a number of factions in there that are led by and pushed by people that don't really know what time it is and what day it is.
And the interesting thing is, whenever you see those Tea Party marches, the people at the end of the line are wearing white coats with syringes in their hands.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Are they going to live through it? All right,
I think
you want to go on and talk about it. Go ahead.
I don't really pay that much attention to some of those folks, but if somebody comes out and says, I think government's too big and we ought to cut taxes, I mean, that's not an irrational argument. And if that's their focus, then they got as much right to make that kind of a debate or try to push the debate. I'd rather people talk about that than about personality functions and who your friends are and who your neighbors are.
Well, yeah,
I think
that's
Republicans
true.
in Congress say that, but these folks take it one step further. And the guy in Kentucky saying we shouldn't have a Civil Rights Act. I mean, and then the BP should be commended, not penalized. I mean,
yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah, but and I
Give me that
I don't
sound
have a
again.
portfolio.
You're right. How about why don't we go to
some other cuckoos?
Some of the well, there are cuckoos
there
in this list.
There.
Go to the local races and start with Senator Peters. And before we get there, I'd like to say that I went through the press and I did a crib sheet with all of the people that are running for the various offices, and there is a myriad of thousands, it seems to me, of people who no one ever heard of that are running for whatever. In the state senate race in District 23 where we live, Peters again is running. A guy named Mike Anderson from Upper Marlboro is running. David Carrington from Bowie, Glendale is running, and Bobby Henry. And again, Carrington I've seen before, and I don't think he's a real player, and I don't know where he comes from, what he does really, but I don't know whether he should be here or not. And I don't know who Mike Anderson is, Upper Marlboro.
Haven't met him either.
Okay, so it looks to me that it's Doug and Bobby Henry again. And with that, Bobby Henry and Doug, without any splits, I would think that Doug Peters got a good shot at being returned as our state senator.
I mean, Carrington ran for county council 4 years ago.
You ran for county council, yes.
And, I mean, did respectably.
Not really.
Not
really. He
nice guys finished last, but I mean.
He was not a player.
Right.
I know him well enough to tell you that. I saw him in the lists, and the guy's not only not a player, but he didn't really do much in that race, and he didn't offer much.
But I mean, the fundamental thing in that race, I think it gets down to a rematch between Mr. Henry and Mr. Peters, and my guess is Mr. Peters wins that race.
I think so too. What do you think?
I think it'll be a close race.
It'll be close.
And I think it really depends on who Darrell Carrington and the other one, I don't know at all, who they draw from. And I think I would say normally it would be a pretty close race between Peters and Bobby Henry, but I think these two are a factor, and they have the potential to hurt one or the other of those candidates.
Who do you think Carrington would hurt?
I think he probably hurts Bobby Henry.
I would think so.
That's probably true.
And and
the
like
other
you,
candidate, I don't know.
I don't know Mike Anderson from Upper Marlboro, but I think you're right. I think Carrington would hurt Bobby Henry. That's why I think I'd give the edge right now to Peters. How about House of Delegates?